So the 4th of July was last week, and I wanted to make this video to kind of reflect on my 4th of July and my thoughts on the holiday. Now that I'm older, it has a very different feel to it. And when I was younger, I remember 4th of July probably being my favorite non-Christmas holiday. Obviously, as a kid, Christmas is the go-to holiday, but 4th of July was always a very close number two for me. Even as a young kid, where I wasn't able to light off the big fireworks, just seeing the fireworks and the that day just felt special for some reason. I remember the anticipation leading up to the 4th of July, days before, especially on July 3rd. It felt like Christmas Eve in a way, and I just couldn't wait to wake up on July 4th and get the day going. And I was waiting all day for night to come so we could light off fireworks. And as a kid, I always enjoyed lighting off the kid fireworks, like the smoke bombs and whatnot. And I still, even as an adult, have a bit of a fascination with just even the smaller fireworks are fun, especially smoke bombs. But I remember smoke bombs were my favorite. The little ground spinners were pretty cool. I never really cared too much for the little pop snappets that you throw on the ground. Those were fun at first, and then they'd get boring after like 5 attempts trying to scare somebody. But it was just a fun day, and it wasn't just about being fun. It was, like I said, the anticipation of the day coming. And I never really felt that other than Christmas. You don't get that in any other holiday. At least I didn't. The anticipation and the excitement of waiting and waiting for the day to come. And then once the day's here, you got to wait all day for it to be nighttime so that the real fun can begin. But I don't really feel like that anymore now that I'm an adult. And there's probably a million reasons we could dissect as to why that is. I still really enjoy the holiday, but it just doesn't hit the same anymore. And I wanted to go over just kind of some of my thoughts on why I think that is and my experience this 4th of July and the last couple 4th of Julys just haven't been the same. And it's hard to recapture that excitement that you had as a kid. And now that I'm older and I have to work the next day, I don't typically stay up all night lighting off fireworks. The last couple years, I haven't even bought any fireworks. Previously, I would always buy some and then invite people over, and we'd do a nice little 4th of July set. But the last couple years, I haven't. And like I said, I have to work the next day, so I don't tend to stay up as late. And because of that, when I do go to bed, the neighbors are always lighting off fireworks all night. So that keeps me up. So it's just a totally different perspective now that I'm older versus when I was a kid. Also, I do have a dog, and he's pretty scared of the fireworks. So every time one goes off, he starts freaking out, and that just makes the night even longer. So I think that's one big reason that my perspective on the 4th of July has changed. And when you're a kid, you don't really have that responsibility of waking up for work the next day or whatever it may be because you're out of school during 4th of July. It's your summer break, and you can stay up all night, and there's no responsibilities or anything like that. And I think that's one of the big factors as kind of why I'm not as big on 4th of July as I used to be. Another thing to kind of piggyback off of the responsibilities part is the money. Fireworks are so expensive, and as a kid, you certainly don't see that perspective because you're not the one buying them. But now that you're an adult, and not only are you buying the fireworks, but you're also buying bigger fireworks typically if you're trying to put on a fireworks show, and that's usually what I do. And fireworks are so expensive. And it's kind of crazy because you'll spend hundreds, maybe even thousands for some people on fireworks, and then it's literally like you're just taking your money and lighting it on fire. Because once all the fireworks are gone, you're like, well, what do I have to show for my thousands of dollars that I spent? It's all laying in the street, caught on fire. So that's kind of another bummer that you feel afterwards. It's like I just spent all this money. Whereas when you're a kid, again, you don't spend the money, so you don't feel that side effect. Another thing you have to deal with as an adult, and I wouldn't say this is as big as some of the other points I've made, but the cleanup. The cleanup isn't very fun the next day. For me, my street and my sidewalk and yard is just full of fireworks that I have to clean up the next day. And it's a minor inconvenience, I guess, but when you pile everything together, you can see how the excitement and the joy of 4th of July just doesn't hit the same as when you're a kid. Because when you're a kid, most of us probably didn't help clean up the fireworks. Maybe the fireworks weren't even being done at our house, and now, at least for me, they are. But for a kid, you wake up, you probably light off some smoke bombs and maybe some other small fireworks, and you probably eat at some point, and then you're trying to waste the rest of the day probably playing with friends or something, maybe family members you haven't seen. And then night gets here, and you're lighting off sparklers, and then you start watching the big fireworks go off, and that's completely different when you're an adult. None of that happens. When you're an adult, you got to go buy the fireworks, you got to prepare the house for the day for people to come over. You may even have to cook the food. Then you have to go light off the fireworks, which I do find pretty fun, lighting off the fireworks. But then you have to make sure that you're watching out for everyone's safety. Fireworks can be kind of dangerous. And then you have to clean up. And again, it's just a lot more responsibility, and it does kind of take away from the excitement and the fun, I think, for 4th of July. And then, like I mentioned earlier, some of us lose sleep on 4th of July. I will say one thing that I do still really enjoy about 4th of July is the hot dog eating contest. I watch that every year. I've watched it for the last probably 20 years, back since before Joey Chestnut was even competing. And now I watch it every year just for him to see if he's going to break a record. He's usually eating at least 60 plus hot dogs in 10 minutes, which is crazy. So that's always a fun, to me, that's my 4th of July high as an adult right now. Hopefully, though, next year or the next couple years, maybe I'll try to recapture that excitement again. I do want to start buying some more fireworks and getting a party together, inviting people over, and just trying to experience that joy and that excitement that I once had as a kid. I do want to try to recapture that in the future. And as always, I try to end these videos on a high note. And that being said, this year's 4th of July was America's 250th birthday, which is insane. So that's something to be happy about. That's something to celebrate for sure. So despite 4th of July not being what it used to be for me, I can't help but celebrate and be happy that my country has been around for 250 years, and we should all be happy and proud about that. Hopefully we can get another 250. But go ahead, and I'm curious what you guys think about 4th of July as you get older, and let me know down in the comments. And I also want to know, what were your favorite fireworks as a kid and even as an adult come 4th of July. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.